Asterisk asterisk, don't go in there. Asterisk asterisk. The 20-year-old woman screamed so loudly that all 47 bikers turned toward her at once. The roar of their engines had filled Main Street only seconds earlier. Now there was nothing. No engines. No conversations. Just the sound of Emily Carter struggling to catch her breath. She stood barefoot on the cracked sidewalk outside an abandoned convenience store, one hand gripping the strap of a worn backpack. Her gray shirt was faded. Her jeans were torn. Her hair was tangled from too many nights spent sleeping wherever she could find shelter. She looked exhausted, but she didn't look afraid. Her eyes were fixed on one man, Jack, the oldest biker in the group. He slowly stepped away from his motorcycle. What did you just say? Emily pointed toward the abandoned brick warehouse at the end of the street. Don't go inside. Jack glanced toward the building. That was where they were headed. He looked back at her. Why? Emily swallowed. Because it's a trap. A few of the bikers exchanged skeptical looks. One of them laughed. Lady, you don't know who you're talking to. Emily turned toward him. I know exactly who I'm talking to. The man's smile disappeared. Jack raised one hand, silencing everyone. Then he walked closer. Who are you? Emily hesitated. Emily Carter. Jack stopped. Something about the name clearly meant something to him, but he couldn't place it. He looked at her again. Carter. Emily reached slowly into her backpack. Several bikers tensed. She pulled out an old photograph. The edges were burned. The paper was folded and worn from being handled too many times. She held it toward Jack. You came here because of her. Jack didn't take the photograph. He didn't need to. He already recognized the woman in it. Sarah Carter, standing 20 years younger, standing beside 47 men, including him. Jack's face changed. Where did you get that? My mother. The street became silent again. Emily watched his reaction. You knew her. Jack looked at the other bikers. Some stared at the ground. Some looked away. One quietly whispered Sarah's name. Emily heard it. She stepped closer. You all knew my mother. Jack finally took the photograph. What's happened to Sarah? Emily's expression tightened. She disappeared 8 months ago. Jack looked back at her. Where? I don't know. You didn't report it? I did. What did the police say? Emily laughed once. There was no humor in it. They said she left. Jack frowned. She didn't. Emily shook her head. My mother never would have left me. She paused, then added, not without this. She turned the photograph over. Written across the back in faded black ink were 7 words. If I disappear, find Jack. Trust no one else. Asterisk asterisk. Jack stared at the sentence. His fingers tightened around the paper. Emily watched him. For 8 months, she had carried that photograph everywhere. She had slept with it under her shirt. She had hidden it when strangers approached. She had nearly thrown it away twice because she was terrified that whoever took her mother would find her too. But she hadn't, because this photograph was the only thing she had left. Jack looked into her eyes. Why didn't you find us sooner? Emily's voice dropped. Because I spent 8 months trying to survive. That answer silenced him. She took another breath. I slept in bus stations. I washed my clothes in public bathrooms. I learned which streets were safe after dark. And every night, I wondered if my mother was still alive. She looked at the 47 men. So when I saw all of you coming, her eyes moved to the warehouse. I knew. Jack asked. Knew what? That whatever brought you here. She stepped closer. Is connected to my mother. Jack stared at her, then quietly asked, how? Emily looked around. At the empty storefronts. At the dark windows. At the warehouse. Then back at him. My mother told me something before she disappeared. What? Emily hesitated. She told me that if 47 motorcycles ever came to Red Creek. Jack's expression hardened. I had to stop them before they reached that warehouse. Nobody spoke. Emily's voice became almost a whisper. She said someone inside your club was waiting for you. Jack immediately looked toward the 46 men behind him. For the first time, the atmosphere changed. 47 men, one possible traitor, and one young woman who had somehow known they were coming. Jack looked at Emily. Why should we believe you? Emily stared back. Then she asked the question she had been carrying for 8 months. Asterisk asterisk, if you were me, would you trust 47 strangers after everyone else told you your mother was dead? Asterisk asterisk. Jack said nothing. Neither did anyone else. Emily slowly stepped backward, then pointed toward the warehouse. Believe me or don't. A beat. But if you go in there tonight. Her voice trembled. Someone is going to make sure you never find my mother. Jack's eyes narrowed. Who? Emily shook her head. I don't know. Then she looked directly at him. But I know one thing. What? Her eyes filled with fear for the first time. Asterisk asterisk whoever set the trap already knows all 47 of you are here. Asterisk asterisk. And somewhere inside the abandoned warehouse, a light suddenly turned on. For several seconds after Emily said those words, nobody moved. Asterisk asterisk whoever did it knows you're coming. Asterisk asterisk. The 47 bikers stood in the middle of the street, staring at one another. Then Jack held out his hand. Give me the photograph. Emily didn't move. Jack's eyes narrowed. Emily. She slowly handed it to him. He turned it over again. The handwriting on the back was unmistakable. Sarah's handwriting. 20 years earlier, Sarah had been one of the few people Jack trusted with his life. She had known every secret the club kept, every promise, every mistake, every name. But then she disappeared, and Jack had spent 2 decades telling himself there had to be a reason. He just never imagined that reason would be standing in front of him. A 20-year-old woman with torn shoes and an exhausted face. His eyes moved from the photograph to Emily. Your father, he said quietly. Emily stiffened. What about him? Jack looked down. Daniel. The name made several of the older bikers look away. Emily noticed. You knew him? Jack nodded. Your father was one of us. Emily's face hardened. My mother never told me that. She had her reasons. No. Emily stepped closer. She had secrets. Jack didn't answer. You all knew her. Still nothing. You knew my father. Silence. And somehow, for 20 years, nobody ever came looking for me. That one landed differently. One of the older men lowered his head. Jack looked at Emily. We didn't know you existed. Emily gave a bitter laugh. That's convenient. No, Jack said. It's the truth. She looked at him for several seconds, then asked the question she had carried for most of her life. What happened to my father? Jack didn't answer immediately. He looked toward the warehouse, then back at the photograph. Daniel died 20 years ago. Emily's face went still. He was killed in an accident? Jack shook his head. No. The street seemed to grow colder. He was murdered. Emily's lips parted slightly. For a moment, she didn't breathe. My mother said it was an accident. She was trying to protect you. From who? Jack looked at the men behind him. That's the question we've been trying to answer ever since. Emily stared at him. Then why come here now? Jack folded the photograph carefully. Because 8 days ago, we received a message. What message? Jack pulled a small envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket. There was no name on it. Only one sentence written across the front. She's still alive. Emily's heart stopped. My mother? Jack nodded. That is what brought all 47 of us here. Emily stepped backward. She looked down at the photograph in Jack's hand, then at the warehouse. Then why didn't you tell me? Because we didn't know who sent it. You thought it was a trap. We still do. Emily's eyes filled with anger. For 8 months, I thought my mother was dead. Jack remained silent. I slept in bus stations. Her voice shook. I washed my clothes in public bathrooms. A tear rolled down her cheek. I spent nights under bridges because every time I tried to ask someone for help, they told me I was wasting their time. Jack's expression changed. But you knew she might still be alive. Emily looked directly at him. And you came with 47 men. Jack nodded. Emily whispered. Then you should have come sooner. Nobody had an answer. For the first time that evening, the biker who looked the toughest lowered his head. Another quietly took off his jacket and held it toward Emily. She stared at it, then at him. I don't need your pity. The man shook his head. It isn't pity. He looked at her torn shoes. It's cold. Emily hesitated, then took the jacket. Jack watched silently. Something had changed. The woman in front of them was no longer just Sarah's daughter. She was someone they had failed without ever knowing her. Jack turned toward the warehouse. Everyone stays here. Emily grabbed his arm. No. He looked at her. You can't go in. Why? Because the trap isn't inside the warehouse. Jack frowned. Then where is it? Emily looked around the empty street. Slowly, she pointed toward the dark windows of an old diner across the road. That. Jack followed her finger. Nothing. Just a broken neon sign. But Emily whispered. Someone has been watching me from that window every night for 3 weeks. Jack's expression hardened. The 47 men instinctively turned toward the diner. And then, the neon sign flickered. Once. Twice. Then went completely dark. Emily grabbed Jack's sleeve. That's him. Jack stared at the window. Who? Emily whispered. The man who followed my mother. The man who followed my mother. Emily's words hung in the cold evening air. Jack kept his eyes on the dark diner across the street. Are you sure? Emily nodded. He's been there almost every night. You saw his face? No. Then how do you know it's the same man? Emily looked at Jack. Because he always comes at the same time. Jack checked his watch. 5:43 p.m. One of the bikers beside him noticed something. Jack! He pointed toward the road. A black sedan had just turned the corner. Its headlights were off. It slowed down as it passed the diner, then stopped. Nobody got out. Jack raised one hand. The 47 men immediately spread across the street. Emily instinctively stepped backward. Stay behind me, Jack said. She shook her head. No. Jack turned. This isn't an argument. Emily's voice was low. You still don't understand. What? He doesn't scare me because of what he might do to me. Jack stared at her. He scares me because of what he did to my mother. Before Jack could respond, the sedan's engine suddenly roared. The car sped away. Two bikers jumped onto their motorcycles. Jack shouted, Don't chase it. They stopped. Emily looked at him. Why? Because that's exactly what he wants. Jack turned toward the diner. Someone is trying to pull us away from the warehouse. He pointed at two men. Check the back. They moved immediately. A minute later, one of them shouted, Jack! Everyone turned. The back door of the diner was open. Jack and Emily hurried around the corner. There was nobody inside. Only an overturned chair, an old coffee cup, and a small black envelope sitting on the floor. Jack picked it up. No address. No name. Just one sentence. You should have stayed out of this. Emily stared at it. He knows we're here. Jack opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Emily stepped closer. The photograph showed her mother. Alive. Standing beside a gas station. The picture had been taken only 2 days earlier. Emily's breath caught. My God. Jack looked at the timestamp. 2 days ago. She's alive. Emily covered her mouth. Tears immediately filled her eyes. For 8 months, she'd imagined her mother in a grave she had never seen. And now, there she was. Alive. But there was something else in the photograph. Behind Sarah stood a man. His face was partially hidden beneath a baseball cap. Emily froze. She recognized the jacket. I've seen him before. Jack looked at her. Where? At the bus station. When? 3 months ago. Emily pointed to the photograph. He was watching me. Jack's expression hardened. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because nobody believed me. Jack looked away. That answer hurt more than anger. Emily continued. I thought he was following me because he wanted to hurt me. She looked at her mother in the photograph. But now I think. Jack turned toward her. What? Emily's voice became almost inaudible. He wasn't following me. He was watching to see whether I found you. Silence. Jack looked at the photograph again, then at the message, then toward the warehouse. Suddenly, a thought struck him. Emily. She looked at him. When your mother disappeared, did she leave anything behind? Emily hesitated. Yes. What? A box. What was inside? I don't know. Jack stepped closer. Where is it? Emily looked down. I destroyed it. Jack's face tightened. Why? Because I thought whoever took my mother was looking for it. What did you do with it? I burned most of it. Jack exhaled. Most? Emily slowly nodded. There was one thing I couldn't burn. She opened her backpack. From beneath a torn shirt, she pulled out a small metal key. Jack stared at it. There was a number engraved on the side. 17. His face changed. One of the older bikers noticed. What is it? Jack didn't answer. Emily looked between them. What? Jack finally spoke. That isn't a key to a door. Emily frowned. Then what is it? Jack looked toward the warehouse. It opens a safety deposit box. Where? Jack's voice dropped. Inside the old Red Creek station. Emily's eyes widened. That station has been abandoned for 20 years. Exactly. Jack looked at the 47 men. For the first time that evening, fear appeared in his eyes. Because he finally understood why Sarah had brought them here. Not to find her. Not even to expose whoever had betrayed them. She had brought them back to the place where everything began. And somewhere inside that abandoned station was the truth about Daniel's murder. Jack closed his hand around the photograph. Everyone gets on their bikes. Emily looked at him. Where are we going? Jack stared into the darkness. To find out what your mother was trying to protect us from. Then, behind them, a metal door slowly creaked open. Emily turned. Nobody was standing there. Only darkness. And from somewhere inside the diner came the faint sound of a phone ringing. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then a man's voice came through the darkness. Asterisk, asterisk, Emily Carter. If you want your mother alive, come alone. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, Emily Carter. If you want your mother alive, come alone. Asterisk, asterisk. The voice from the dark diner had barely disappeared when the entire street seemed to hold its breath. Jack stared at the dead phone in his hand. Emily stared at him. Neither spoke. Then Jack asked the question that mattered most. How long have you known? Emily frowned. Known what? That your mother might still be alive. Emily looked away. Jack noticed. You knew? She shook her head. I suspected. For how long? Emily hesitated. 3 months. Jack's expression hardened. And you didn't tell me. I didn't know whether I could trust you. That answer landed harder than an accusation. Jack stepped closer. You found 47 men. You warned us about the warehouse. You knew someone was watching the diner. And now we find out your mother may still be alive. He lowered his voice. What else haven't you told me? Emily said nothing. One of the older bikers looked toward the dark windows of the diner. Jack, she's hiding something. Emily turned sharply. I've been hiding something because every person who told me the truth was dead, missing, or lying. Jack looked at her. For a moment, neither backed down. Then Emily slowly reached into her backpack. I have something. She pulled out a small audio recorder. Jack stared at it. What is that? My mother gave it to me 3 nights before she disappeared. Jack's eyes narrowed. Why didn't you give this to the police? Because she specifically told me not to. Emily pressed the button. Static filled the street. Then, a woman's voice. Sarah. Weak. Tired. But unmistakably alive. Emily. Emily's eyes immediately filled with tears. I don't know how much time I have. Jack stepped closer. Sarah continued. If you're hearing this, you probably found the photograph. A pause. And if you found the photograph, then you found Jack. Jack's jaw tightened. Sarah's voice became quieter. Emily, listen to me carefully. Do not trust the police. Do not trust anyone who tells you I am dead. And whatever happens, there was a long pause. Do not open locker 17. The recording stopped. Jack stared at the device. Locker 17? Emily nodded. My mother left me a key. She pulled the small metal key from her pocket. The number 17 was engraved across it. Jack looked at it. Then at Emily. Where does it go? The old Red Creek station. Jack immediately understood. That place has been abandoned for 20 years. I know. Why would your mother send you there? I don't know. Jack looked back at the recorder. There's more. Emily shook her head. No. Emily. My mother recorded it in 3 pieces. Jack stared at her. You have the other 2? Emily nodded. Where? One is in the locker. And the other? She hesitated. I don't know. Jack studied her face. You're lying. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Yes. The word surprised him. She looked down at the key. But not about my mother. Jack waited. Emily finally said. 3 months ago, I found someone following me. Who? I never saw his face. Then how do you know it was connected to Sarah? Emily looked toward the dark diner. Because he knew my name. A beat. He knew my mother's name. And last night, she continued, I found this photograph outside my sleeping place. She pulled another photo from the backpack. It showed Sarah, alive, standing outside a gas station. The timestamp was only 2 days old. Jack stared at it. His voice dropped. She's alive. Emily nodded. That's what I believe. Jack looked at the 46 men behind him, then back at Emily. Why show me now? Emily swallowed. Because my mother said one more thing before the recording ended. Jack waited. Emily looked directly into his eyes. She said, her voice trembled. Asterisk, asterisk, if Jack ever finds out who is behind this, he must remember that the enemy may be standing beside him. Asterisk, asterisk. Nobody moved. Jack slowly turned toward the men behind him. 47 faces. 20 years of loyalty. One unknown enemy. And suddenly, every man standing in that street was a suspect. Emily looked at Jack. Now you understand why I didn't trust you. Jack didn't answer. Because for the first time, he wasn't sure whether he trusted himself. And what Jack didn't know yet was that the name they were about to uncover had been buried for 20 years. Jack stared at the message. He doesn't know what his brother did. For the first time that night, the man who had seemed impossible to shake looked genuinely lost. Emily watched his face. Who is your brother? Jack didn't answer. One of the older bikers slowly stepped forward. Jack. Jack raised a hand. Not here. Emily shook her head. No. Here. He looked at her. You've spent 8 months searching for your mother. You found us. You found the warehouse. You found the key. Her voice trembled, but she didn't back down. And now someone is sending messages about your brother. She took a breath. I think I deserve the truth. Jack stared at the dark street. Finally, he spoke. My brother's name was Michael. Emily waited. He was 6 years younger than me. Jack's voice became quieter. He joined the club when he was 18. Your father was his best friend. Emily's eyes widened. My father knew him. They were inseparable. Jack looked at the old photograph. Until the night Daniel died. What happened? Jack closed his eyes. Michael was supposed to be driving the car. Emily froze. What car? The one Daniel was in. A cold silence settled over them. Jack continued. They told us the brakes failed on a mountain road. And you believed that? For 20 years. Emily looked at the key in Jack's hand. Until now. Jack nodded. Until your mother disappeared. One of the bikers interrupted. Jack, we need to move. No. Jack looked toward the warehouse. We aren't going anywhere. Emily frowned. Why? Because your mother told you not to let me open box 17. He looked at the key. And someone just told us my dead brother wasn't what I thought he was. Jack walked toward the old diner. Emily followed. Where are you going? To the phone. He entered the diner. The room smelled of dust, old coffee, and rain. The broken neon sign outside flickered through the window. On the counter sat an old landline. Jack stared at it. The phone rang again. Once. Twice. He picked it up. Hello. Nothing. Then a man's voice whispered. You took your time, Jack. Jack froze. Emily stared at him. Michael. A soft laugh came through the receiver. No. Jack's face tightened. Who is this? You really don't recognize your brother's voice? Jack gripped the phone. Michael died 20 years ago. Did he? The line went dead. Emily stared at Jack. Was that him? Jack didn't answer. He slowly lowered the receiver. Then he noticed something taped beneath the phone. A small photograph. He pulled it free. His hands began to shake. The photograph showed 3 men. Jack, Daniel, and Michael. But the picture wasn't 20 years old. It had been taken recently. Jack turned it over. A date was written on the back. 3 days ago. Emily stepped closer. What does it mean? Jack looked at her. I don't know. That was a lie. Or at least, part of one. Because there was something else in the photograph. Behind the 3 men stood a building. An old farmhouse. Emily recognized it immediately. My mother's house. Jack looked again. The photograph had been taken outside Sarah's old home. The same place Emily had searched hundreds of times. The same place police had told her contained nothing. Emily's breathing quickened. We need to go there. Jack shook his head. No. Why? Because that's exactly where they want us to go. Emily looked at him. And what if my mother is there? Jack hesitated. That was the problem. For 20 years, he had trusted the wrong answers because they were easier to live with. Now every truth seemed to lead somewhere darker. He turned to the 46 men waiting outside. Locked down the street. Then he looked at Emily. You're staying with me. She nodded. But before they could move, a loud crash came from inside the diner. The back window shattered. Everyone turned. A small object rolled across the floor. Emily saw it first. A phone. Its screen was already glowing. One new message. Box 17 isn't for you, Jack. Another message appeared. It's for Emily. Emily stepped closer. A third message appeared. And she already knows what's inside. Jack slowly turned toward her. Emily's face went white. Because there was one truth she had never told him. One thing her mother had said the night before she disappeared. Something Emily had buried for 8 months. Something she had promised herself she would never repeat. Until now. She looked at Jack. My mother told me exactly what's inside box 17. Jack stared at her. What? Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. A recording of your brother killing my father. A recording of your brother killing my father. Emily's words landed harder than any gunshot. Jack stared at her. For several seconds, he didn't even blink. Behind him, the 46 bikers stood perfectly still. One finally whispered, Jack. But Jack raised his hand. Everyone stay outside. Nobody argued. Jack stepped toward Emily. You're sure? Emily nodded. My mother showed me a piece of it. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know if it was real. Jack's voice became quiet. And now? Emily looked toward the glowing phone on the floor. Now I think someone wants us to find out. Jack picked up the phone. Another message appeared. Come to station 17. Midnight. ***. He stared at it. Emily moved closer. That's the old Red Creek station. I know. Then that's where we go. Jack shook his head. Not you. Emily's eyes hardened. I'm not staying behind. You don't understand what you're walking into. I understand perfectly. She pointed at the message. They killed my father. They took my mother. And someone has been watching me for months. Her voice cracked. I've spent 8 months being afraid. She looked directly at him. I'm done. Jack studied her face. For a moment, he saw something that reminded him of Daniel. Not the eyes, not the face, the stubbornness, the refusal to back down when everyone else wanted to run. Finally, Jack nodded. Then you stay beside me. They left the diner shortly before midnight. The rest of the bikers followed at a distance. No headlights, no music, no conversation. Only the soft rumble of 47 engines moving through the darkness. When they reached the abandoned station, Jack stopped. The building looked exactly as it had 20 years ago. Broken windows, rusting signs, a collapsed platform. Emily stepped off her bike and looked around. This place feels wrong. Jack nodded. It always did. Inside the station, dust covered everything. Old ticket counters, broken benches, a clock frozen at 11:42. Jack found a metal staircase leading underground. At the bottom was a narrow corridor. And at the end, a steel door. Emily pulled the key from her pocket. Box 17. She inserted it. The lock clicked. Jack looked at her. Ready? Emily nodded. The door opened. Inside was a small room. A table, a tape recorder, and a single envelope. Emily walked toward it. The name written on the envelope was hers. Emily. Her hands trembled. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter from her mother. She unfolded it. Emily, if you're reading this, then Jack finally knows the truth. But there is something you must understand. Your father's death was not the beginning. It was the moment they realized they could never control him. Michael didn't kill your father because he hated him. He killed him because he was told to. And the person giving him orders was not outside the club. He was one of the men standing beside Jack. Emily stopped reading. Her eyes moved toward the doorway. 47 men. One traitor. Maybe more. Jack took the letter from her. His face became hard. Keep reading. Emily continued. I trusted 47 men. I should have trusted none. Jack looked away. Then Emily noticed something at the bottom of the letter. One final line. She read it aloud. The traitor is the man who always stood closest to Jack. Jack slowly turned. Of the 47 bikers, only one man had always been beside him. His closest friend. His second in command. Tom. Jack's face drained of color. No. Emily looked at him. What? Tom was with me the night Daniel died. He was. Jack nodded. He said he arrived 10 minutes after the accident. Emily stared at him. Then why does my mother say he was there? Jack couldn't answer. A sound came from the tape recorder. Static. Then, click. The machine turned itself on. A man's voice filled the room. Jack knew it immediately. Michael. Jack. He stopped breathing. If you're hearing this. A pause. Then Sarah failed. Jack grabbed the edge of the table. Michael continued. I didn't kill Daniel. Emily looked at Jack. I was there. The voice shook. But someone else pulled the trigger. Jack's eyes widened. Who? The tape crackled. Then Michael said the name. Jack froze. Emily stared at him. Because the name wasn't Tom. It wasn't any of the men they suspected. It was someone Jack had never considered. Someone who had been dead for 20 years. Michael whispered. Asterisk, asterisk, Daniel wasn't killed by a stranger, Jack. He was killed by our father. Asterisk, asterisk. The tape stopped. Silence. Emily looked at Jack. What does that mean? Jack didn't answer. Because slowly, painfully, another memory was returning. A memory he had buried for 20 years. The night Daniel died. Jack had not been at the accident scene. He had been somewhere else. With his father. And for the first time, Jack realized something terrifying. Maybe he hadn't been investigating Daniel's murder for 20 years. Maybe he had been helping cover it up. Maybe Jack's voice was barely audible. I had been helping cover it up. Emily stared at him. For 20 years, he had believed Daniel's death was a tragedy. An accident. A closed chapter. But the recording had changed everything. Michael's voice was still echoing in his head. And one question refused to disappear. What had Jack himself been protecting? Before Emily could ask, a sound came from above. A heavy metal door slammed. Then footsteps. Fast. Jack immediately looked up. Stay behind me. 3 bikers moved toward the staircase. A few seconds later, one of them came running down. Jack! What happened? Raymond is missing. Jack froze. What? He was in the parking lot 10 seconds ago. Then he disappeared. Jack's expression hardened. Raymond, his closest friend. The man who had stood beside him through 2 decades of funerals, fights, and secrets. The man Sarah's recording had warned them about. Jack turned toward Emily. Stay here. Emily shook her head. No, this isn't safe. Neither was sleeping under a bridge. Jack stared at her. Emily stepped closer. I've been afraid for 8 months, Jack. Her voice trembled. But I'm not running anymore. Jack looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Stay beside me. They climbed the stairs. Outside, the 47 bikers were spread across the station yard. One of them pointed toward the trees. There, a motorcycle helmet lay on the ground. Jack walked toward it. He recognized it immediately. Raymond's. Beside it was a dark stain on the dirt. Blood. Emily stopped breathing. Is he dead? Jack crouched down. He touched the stain. Still fresh. I don't know. Then he noticed something beneath the helmet. A photograph. He picked it up. His hand stopped moving. The photograph showed Sarah, alive, standing outside an old farmhouse. Emily rushed closer. That's my mother. Jack turned the photo over. A date had been written on the back. Last night. Emily's eyes widened. She was here. Jack looked around the station. She could still be close. Emily suddenly heard something. A faint sound. Almost like someone crying. She turned toward the abandoned maintenance building. Mom. Jack grabbed her arm. Wait. Again. A soft sob. Emily pulled free. That's her. She ran. Jack and several bikers followed. They rounded the corner. And Emily stopped. A woman was sitting against the brick wall. Her hands were tied. Her clothes were dirty. Her face was bruised. But she was alive. Emily could barely breathe. Mom. The woman lifted her head. Their eyes met. Then Sarah whispered one word. Emily. Emily ran into her arms. They collapsed onto the ground together. For several seconds, neither could speak. Then Sarah held her daughter tighter. I thought you were dead, Emily cried. Sarah broke down. I wanted to come back. Then why didn't you? Because they were watching you. Emily pulled away. Who? Sarah looked toward the 47 bikers. Then at Jack. They wanted me to disappear. Jack stepped closer. Who did? Sarah stared at him. Her eyes filled with anger. The people who killed Daniel. Jack's face tightened. Tell me who. Sarah shook her head. Not here. Sarah. Not here. She looked around. They're still watching. Everyone went silent. One biker asked. Who? Sarah took a shaky breath. I don't know all of them. She looked at Jack. But I know the man who kept the truth buried. Jack's expression changed. Who? Sarah slowly raised one trembling hand and pointed behind him. Jack turned. A man stood alone near the motorcycles. Raymond. His clothes were clean. His face was calm. No blood. No fear. He had been there the entire time. Jack stared at him. Raymond. Raymond smiled faintly. I was wondering when you'd finally see me. Several bikers immediately moved toward him. Jack raised a hand. Stop. Raymond looked at Sarah. You survived. Sarah's eyes filled with hatred. You should have finished what Richard started. Emily looked at her mother. Richard. Sarah closed her eyes. Jack slowly turned toward her. Who is Richard? Sarah whispered. Daniel's father. Jack went still. Emily stared at Sarah. My grandfather? Sarah nodded. He wasn't the man who pulled the trigger. Jack frowned. Then what did he do? Sarah looked at Raymond. Richard gave the order. Then she pointed at Raymond. Raymond made sure nobody ever discovered it. Jack stared at his closest friend. You knew? Raymond said nothing. You knew my father ordered Daniel killed? Raymond finally answered. He wanted Daniel silenced. Jack's jaw tightened. And you helped him? I did what had to be done. Emily stepped forward. You destroyed my family. Raymond looked at her. No. His eyes hardened. Your family destroyed itself long before your mother ever came back. Jack stepped toward him. You're under arrest. Raymond smiled. You still don't understand. He pointed toward the trees. Then, one light appeared. Then another. Then another. Dozens of headlights came alive in the darkness. Black SUVs emerged from behind the trees. Emily grabbed her mother's hand. Jack slowly looked around. 47 bikers. One wounded friend. One rescued woman. One truth that had finally surfaced. And now, they were surrounded. Sarah whispered. That's why I ran. Emily looked at her. Why? Sarah's voice shook. Because once Richard realized you found Jack. She looked toward the approaching vehicles. He knew the 47 men would come. Jack stared at the headlights. How many? A biker beside him counted. Too many. Jack looked at the 46 men behind him. Then at Emily. Then Sarah. His voice was calm. Stay behind us. Emily shook her head. No. Jack looked at her. Emily stepped forward. I spent 8 months looking for my mother. She looked at the 47 men. And you spent 20 years looking for the truth. Her eyes hardened. Tonight, nobody runs. The engines of the black SUVs roared. The 47 bikers started theirs. The night exploded with sound. And for the first time, Emily understood the truth her mother had been trying to protect her from. They hadn't come to Red Creek to rescue her. They had come here to end a 20-year-old war. Dozens of headlights suddenly came alive beyond the tree line. One after another. Then another. Then another. Until the entire forest seemed to be filled with white beams cutting through the darkness. Emily tightened her arms around her mother. Jack stepped forward. Everyone stayed together. The 47 bikers moved instinctively into position. No shouting. No panic. Just men who had spent decades learning how to stand when everyone else wanted to run. Raymond remained in the middle of the street. He looked almost amused. You really thought you could walk into Red Creek, open an old box, and walk away? Jack's jaw tightened. Who are they? Raymond didn't answer. A vehicle emerged from the darkness. Then another. Black SUVs. No markings. No plates. They stopped one by one around the station. Emily looked at her mother. Mom. Sarah grabbed her hand. Don't let go. A door opened. A man in a dark coat stepped out. He was older. Maybe 60. Calm. Expensively dressed. He looked completely out of place among the dust, motorcycles, and abandoned buildings. Jack stared at him. Then his face changed. No. The man smiled. You finally remember me. Emily looked between them. Who is he? Jack didn't answer. The man did. My name is Richard Carter. Emily froze. Carter. Her mother's last name. Her father's last name. The man smiled at her. Your grandfather. Emily's face went completely blank. My grandfather is dead. Richard chuckled. That's what your mother told you? Sarah immediately stepped in front of Emily. Don't listen to him. Richard's expression hardened. You've spent 20 years teaching my granddaughter to hate me. Sarah shook her head. I spent 20 years keeping her alive. Richard looked at the 47 bikers. You all want to know why Daniel died? Nobody moved. Because he betrayed his family. Emily stared at him. My father didn't betray anyone. Richard looked at her. He stole from me. No. He threatened to expose me. He was trying to stop you. Richard smiled. That is the same thing. Jack stepped forward. You killed him. Richard looked at Jack. No. Then he pointed toward Raymond. I gave him the order. Emily turned. Raymond didn't deny it. Jack's face hardened. You bastard. Richard continued. Daniel was going to destroy everything I'd built. Jack shook his head. So you used the club. I used people who were willing to be used. Richard's words made the 47 bikers look at one another. Emily suddenly understood. The club hadn't been the enemy. It had been manipulated. Her father had trusted them. Her mother had feared them. And Richard had used all of it. Sarah whispered. He wanted the club to destroy itself. Emily looked at her. What? Sarah took a breath. Daniel discovered that your grandfather had been laundering money through businesses connected to the club. She pointed toward Richard. He knew if the truth came out, the club would be destroyed. Emily looked at Jack. And that's why my father was killed. Jack nodded. But Sarah continued. There's something else. Jack looked at her. Sarah reached into her coat. She pulled out a small memory card. I didn't tell anyone because I wasn't sure who was still loyal. She looked at Raymond. Until tonight. Emily took the card. What is it? The complete recording. Jack stared. Complete. Sarah nodded. The tape you found in box 17 was only part of it. Emily looked at the tiny card in her hand. What does the rest say? Sarah looked at Jack. It proves everything. She handed it to him. Jack looked toward the bikers. Get a laptop. One of the men rushed to a motorcycle. Seconds later, he returned with one. Jack inserted the card. A video appeared. Daniel. Alive. 20 years younger. Sitting inside a car. He looked exhausted. Then another man entered the frame. Richard. Daniel's voice came through the speakers. You're not going to get away with this. Richard replied. You think anyone will believe you? Daniel looked toward the camera. They'll believe my daughter. Emily's hand went to her mouth. Richard laughed. She'll never know. Daniel's face hardened. Then make sure she grows up somewhere you can't reach her. The video ended. Silence. Emily was crying. But she wasn't crying because of fear anymore. She was crying because, for the first time, she heard her father speak. He hadn't abandoned her. He had been trying to protect her. Jack walked toward Emily. I should have found this 20 years ago. Emily shook her head. You didn't know? I should have. She looked at him. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Jack removed his leather vest. He held it out to her. Emily stared. What are you doing? Jack answered quietly. Your father wore one of these. She shook her head. I can't wear that. You don't have to. He held it closer. But your father once told me something. Emily looked at him. What? Jack smiled sadly. He said family isn't the person who shares your blood. He paused. It's the person who stays when everyone else leaves. Emily's eyes filled again. Around her, the 47 men slowly removed their own vests. One after another. No speeches. No grand gestures. Just 47 men placing their loyalty where it belonged. With her. Richard looked around. You're all making a mistake. Jack turned toward him. No. He looked at Emily. For 20 years, we made the mistake of letting fear decide who we were. Then he faced Richard. Tonight it ends. Sirens could be heard in the distance. Sarah had already called the police before they arrived. Raymond looked toward the road. His confidence disappeared. The black SUVs began pulling away. Richard tried to follow, but dozens of motorcycles blocked the road. 47 men. One line. No way through. Jack stepped toward Emily. You ready? Emily looked at her mother, then at the 47 bikers. She took a breath. For 20 years, she had believed family was the thing she had lost. Tonight, she finally understood. Sometimes, family is the thing you find. The engines roared across the abandoned station. 47 motorcycles. A circle of steel and headlights. On the other side of the road, black SUVs surrounded them. Emily stood beside her mother. Jack moved in front of them. Raymond was still near the center of the road, watching everything unfold with an unsettling calm. Then a voice came through a loudspeaker. Jack! A man stepped from the first SUV. Older, gray-haired, wearing an expensive black coat. Emily's mother immediately grabbed her arm. No. Jack stared at the man. His face changed. Richard. Emily looked between them. The man smiled. So you finally put the pieces together. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. That's my grandfather? Sarah nodded. He is. Emily looked at Richard. You're the reason my father is dead. Richard didn't deny it. Your father knew too much. Emily's fists tightened. And my mother? You were next. Sarah pulled Emily closer. Richard continued. I offered Sarah a choice 20 years ago. Sarah looked at him with hatred. You offered me nothing. I offered you your daughter's life. Emily froze. Sarah closed her eyes. I believed him. Her voice broke. I thought if I disappeared, he would leave you alone. Richard smiled. And for 20 years, it worked. Jack stepped forward. You used Daniel's death to control Sarah? Richard looked at him. I used fear. Jack's face hardened. And you used my club. Richard nodded. Your club was useful. That sentence seemed to hit all 47 men at once. They had spent 20 years believing their loyalty had protected people. Now they understood that someone had been manipulating that loyalty from the shadows. Jack looked at Raymond. And you? Raymond said nothing. Jack's voice cracked. You stood beside me for 20 years. Raymond finally looked at him. I was there the night Daniel died. Jack stared. You watched it happen. Yes. You knew Richard ordered it. Yes. And you let me believe my brother was responsible. Raymond's face remained expressionless. You needed someone to blame. Jack stepped closer. You were my brother's best friend. No. Raymond shook his head. I was Richard's man. The words silenced everyone. Then Emily stepped forward. Her mother grabbed her wrist. Emily, no. But Emily didn't stop. She stood between 47 bikers and the man who had helped destroy her family. You took 20 years from my mother. Raymond stared at her. You took my father. She took another step. And you took 8 months of my life. Her voice trembled. But you didn't take everything. Raymond frowned. Emily looked around. At her mother. At Jack. At the 47 men. You made one mistake. Raymond asked. What mistake? Emily answered. You thought I was alone. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the first police sirens echoed through the valley. Richard's expression changed. He looked toward Raymond. What's happening? Raymond suddenly realized. Sarah had called the police before coming to the station. And the memory card containing the complete recording? Jack had already sent a copy to an attorney when they left locker 17. Richard looked toward the road. Police vehicles appeared between the trees. The black SUVs were trapped. Officers moved in from both sides. Richard tried to step backward. Jack stopped him. "It's over." Richard looked at him. "No." Jack shook his head. "It was over 20 years ago." Richard stared at him. "You think you can erase what happened?" Jack looked toward Emily. "No." He paused. "We're finally going to stop hiding it." Richard was taken away. Raymond followed. This time, neither man looked back. The station slowly became quiet. The danger was gone. But Emily didn't move. She stood beside her mother, staring at the place where Richard had disappeared. Then she whispered, "Why didn't anyone come for us?" Jack heard her. He stepped closer. "We didn't know you existed." Emily looked at him. "But once you knew." Jack nodded. "We should have found you." His voice broke slightly. "We should have looked harder." Emily wiped her tears. "You can't change that." "No." Jack looked down. "But I can change what happens next." He reached inside his jacket, then pulled out an old metal key. Emily stared at it. "What is that?" "Your father's key." "To what?" "His workshop." Emily looked confused. "Daniel had a workshop?" Jack nodded. "I kept it after he died." "Why?" Jack gave a quiet smile. "Because I couldn't bring myself to sell the last place my brother ever built with his own hands." Emily looked at the key. "I don't want charity." Jack smiled. "Good." She looked up. "Because I'm not offering charity." He placed the key in her hand. "I'm offering you a place to start." Emily closed her fingers around it. Sarah stepped closer. "Maybe it's time we finally went home." Emily looked at her mother, then at Jack, then at the 47 men. She took a breath. "Okay." Jack nodded. "Okay." ## 1 year later. The old workshop no longer looked abandoned. The broken windows had been replaced. The walls had been repaired. Daniel's tools were still hanging exactly where Jack remembered them. But the place had changed. There were photographs everywhere. One showed Daniel. One showed Sarah. And one showed 47 younger men standing together 20 years earlier. Beside them was a new photograph. Emily, standing in the middle of all 47 bikers. She was smiling. Not the careful smile she had learned to use when she needed people to leave her alone. A real smile. The kind that reached her eyes. She had gone back to school. She had her own room now. She had a job at the workshop. And every Friday evening, motorcycles arrived. Sometimes 10. Sometimes 20. Sometimes all 47. Not for revenge. Not for another mission. Just dinner. One Friday, Emily walked outside and saw Jack carrying a cardboard box. "You're late." Jack frowned. "You invited me." "No." She smiled. "You invited yourself." Frank laughed from behind him. "She's becoming more like Daniel every day." Emily looked at him. "That's supposed to be a compliment?" Frank grinned. "Absolutely." Jack handed her the box. Inside was an old photograph. The same photograph from 20 years ago. Daniel, Sarah, Jack, Michael, and the rest of the club. Emily turned it over. There was a handwritten message on the back. She read it silently. Then her eyes filled with tears. Jack asked, "What does it say?" Emily looked at him. "It's from my father." Jack smiled. "What does it say?" Emily read, "If my daughter ever finds this family, remind her that she was never forgotten." Nobody spoke. Emily looked at Daniel's old motorcycle inside the workshop. For 20 years, she had believed her father left her. Now she finally understood. He hadn't left. He had been trying to protect her from a family secret that nearly destroyed everyone he loved. Sarah stepped beside her. "Are you okay?" Emily nodded. "Yeah." She smiled through her tears. "For the first time, I think I am." Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. "You know something?" "What?" "Your father would be proud of you." Emily looked at the motorcycle. "I wish I could have met him." Jack smiled. "You did." She looked at him. "In every person you became because of him." Emily looked around. At her mother. At Jack. At the 47 men laughing outside. For 8 months, she had carried everything she owned in one backpack. She had believed she was invisible. She had believed nobody would come. But one night, she stood in the middle of a road and told 47 strangers, "Don't go in there." She thought she was trying to save them. She never realized they were about to save her too. ### final connection with the audience. Emily had spent 8 months searching for her mother. But what she really found was something much bigger. She found the truth. She found forgiveness. And most importantly, she found people who stayed. So let me ask you something. If you had been Emily, would you have forgiven Jack and the 47 men for failing to find you for all those years? Would you? Because forgiveness isn't about pretending the past never happened. Sometimes, it's simply deciding that the past doesn't get to control the rest of your life. And maybe that's the part of Emily's story that matters most. Not the motorcycles, not the secrets, not even the revenge. Just this. Sometimes the family you're born into breaks you. And sometimes, completely unexpected people help put you back together. And when that happens, don't be afraid to call them family.